Wednesday morning, everyone. We hope you're doing well this morning. Those of you I see look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Those of you I don't see, well, we'll find out if you're bright-eyed and bushy-tailed if you turn on your camera, that's for sure. Thanks for joining us this morning. We got some, really important topics we're going to utilize this forum on. I know we got, just only a few participants in so far, but more are coming in, and we can see as people wake up and get to their computer and fire it up and remember, oh yeah, shoot, I was supposed to be on Chamber Chat this morning. They'll log on because they can at any time they want. We have Caitlin watching there diligently to make sure we get people out of the waiting room and into the forum. So we're going to have a really interesting discussion this morning. It's something that my guest, who most of you most of you do know, but we've talked about, all of this creativity stuff centered around business for a long, long time. In fact, Scott Higgins is one of the, is the kind of idea guy behind the Waterloo region being named the creative capital of Canada. And, people have asked him, well, Scott, why would you do that? Well, why not? Nobody else has done it. Who's going to challenge it? Once you say it, it's out there, right? So who's going to refute that? We are the creative capital of Canada. And also the good thing behind that is there's tons of evidence that demonstrates that we are the creative capital of Canada. And of course, Scott, in his generation, Preston guy, grew up here. He's trying to put his own mark on creativity. You all know he's president and CEO of HIP Developments, and HIP Developments are the developers of a really cool space, the old American Standard building in Hespeler and the apartment complex there. Also, he is the mind and spirit and vision behind the Gaslight districts, which are really going to see them come to life this summer and fall. It's going to be tons of fun down there, and it's going to be an enviable place to be on a Friday and Saturday night, I'm quite sure. But especially live there. I'd love to live there, just sit out on the balcony and watch what's going on, because I'm kind of one of those nosy guys. But anyway, Scott, thanks for joining us this morning. I know you're a busy guy, but it's great to have you here to talk about something I know you are really passionate about.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Greg. It's always nice to join you on Chamber Chat.
So a few months ago, Scott, actually longer than a few months ago, I think it was probably closer to a year ago, Scott says to me, I got this idea. We're the creative capital of Canada. We got all these kids coming through our education system. We've got to figure out a way to inspire them to contribute to the creativeness of our community. We've got everything we need right here. We've got technology, we've got manufacturing, we've got business acumen, we've got finance, we've got everything, all of the tools that you need to be creative and to inspire change. So why don't we work diligently with those young minds who are really at the stage of their lives where not that you mold them the way you want to mold them, but you can unleash the creativity that they have buried deep inside them that maybe they don't even know that they have. And I think, what you have to be able to do is you have to be able to unlock that and let happen what happens. It's like watching kids play on the beach. Give them a pail and a shovel and a couple of other toys and let them have fun and do the things that they want to do or they feel compelled to do. And that's really what this project is about. It's called Youth Creativity Fund. And it's about taking you and I, the business community and believers in the community and the creativeness of our community, and tapping a little bit into our pocketbooks, if we possibly can, to create a fund that who knows who it could inspire next. It could be the next BlackBerry. It could be the next Electra home. It could be the next HIP Developments that comes along and says, I've got great ideas on how to transform my community. So Scott, let's talk about the importance of this from that perspective, and you know what you've experienced, and because you've dealt a lot with these young kids and the creativity aspects behind them. Let's talk about the importance of that, and why we need to do this as a community, not as a governments, not as governments, but as a community.
Yeah, I mean there's a lot to unpack there. So I'll take a step back and sort of tell you a little bit about what the idea is and why it came to be. But it started a year and a half, 2 years ago when the Smart Cities Challenge was on, and we brought the youth planning table together, and there was a lot of good discussion on how to be the best city in the world for children and youth. And that was the spirit behind the Smart Cities Initiative. Ultimately, we didn't win that initiative, but it galvanized a lot of energy to really look more deeply at what are we doing as a community to support our kids. And two major findings came out of it that sort of shocked me at the time, which one was a very high percentage of our children didn't feel connected to the community. They didn't understand the region's history. They didn't feel a part of the community, which is pretty shocking, actually, if you just think about that for a minute. You know, the other thing that came out of it was we were spending a lot of our resource and time focused on post-secondary education, which is come to our community, educate yourself, and we hope you stick around. And the danger with that transient talent is, you know, what's going to happen with that success rate. We weren't putting a lot of effort into our own kids in terms of aspiration to even get into those post-secondary institutions we were so heavily supporting. So we were sort of building a really shallow depth of entrepreneurship, of innovation, of creativity, of invention, whatever you want to call it. We were building it without much community connection at all, other than maybe the 2, 3, 4 years you spend at that institution. We were fortunate, we were small. So, you know, if 6% of the people stuck around and did something interesting, then our economy would grow. But nobody was really looking at how to take what I believe is the real culture of Waterloo Region, which is our past inventiveness. We made things, we were entrepreneurial. We had some of the biggest industries in Canada as a very small center. We went on to do some very global things as a tiny dot in the world. And that was because of the inventive and creative lineage of our region. I mean, in so much as we created the University of Waterloo as a community because of what we saw in the future. And now we think that our success stems from the University of Waterloo and other post-secondary institutions. But the reality was that was creative minds within the community, not government, to your point, getting to work. And so, you know, those two pillars kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And I've got 2 kids in grade school. I thought, there's an interesting potential there. Is what if we could share the culture of Waterloo Region, our creative lineage, tell our stories, and try to pass that baton almost out of obligation that they need to try to do something in the world because you're from a place where something in the water makes you want to do something. But then what mechanisms do we really have to share that with, you know, grade school and high school kids? And there's not a lot of venues that we had that supported, you know, that type of mindset. I mean, the school system doesn't reward risk taking, doesn't reward failure. But these are some of the pillars of entrepreneurship, as we all know, right? And so what are we really teaching our kids? So a group of us got together and kicked around some ideas. And one of the ideas, and I'll get to the model that we looked at, outside of the storytelling, outside of the celebration, outside of that community connection, was we looked at a micro grant systems that were being done in developing nations across the world. And we've all heard of these, right? You $500 to a woman entrepreneur in an African village that is the farthest from opportunity, the empowerment that has when you stay consistent with those programs and add some mentorship into those programs. You do that for a decade and you can fundamentally change the opportunity in developing nations. And we just said, why can't we take that? I'm a big fan of taking models that work and just adapting them to a different circumstance. Why can't we take that exact same model and do it here? And so we kicked around ideas of, could we create a community fund, not a government fund, to give micro grants to grade and high school kids to support their creative ideas, whether they're entrepreneurial, whether industrial, whether they're social, whether they're environmental, doesn't matter what it is. Wouldn't it be neat if we just seeded that for a decade in Waterloo Region and watched what happened? And so we can explore a little more, but yeah, that's the ethos of the program. And there's a lot of nuance in there that I'm looking forward to talking with you about.
Well, you can see in Scott's background that he's really all about the creativity of kids. I think that entire wall are those your kids' creativity going.
Yeah, dad might have a couple up here, but they're mostly the kids.
Well, I think, and when you really start to dig into, and I loved your phrase about, there's something in the water that makes things happen here. There is lots of evidence of that. Quite frankly, I'm not suggesting there actually is something in the water, but there's something about the Waterloo region community. There's something that is inspiring here, and I think it's it seems to be that, we probably, when you look way back and why did people locate here, it was really the innovative spirit of the industrialists of the time who said, we need water to power this and we need water to power that. And they were kind of the mechanical engineers of the day who said, this is where we can establish our business. And then, community kind of evolved around that. And a lot of the traits that we have seen over the years have really come from the mindset of those early settlers who have had profound ideas. In fact, I think the first mechanical water pump is still operating in the Sheave Tower in Blair, and like a lot of things like that happened in our region were as a result of those early pioneers who were really the big industrialists, the risk takers, those who really wanted to do something and make a difference in not just their lives, but in their communities' lives. And I think it's not the water, it's the spirit, I think, that those early settlers left behind. But, as you pointed out, Scott, we can get comfortable and let that die off and not end up being the creative capital. That was our history. Today, we're just another. But we got to do something about uplifting that creativity.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And that's, but our systems try to bleed that out. I mean, we're efficiency, we're scale, we're all these things, which, the biggest part of invention doesn't generally happen at that level. And really it's trying to, everybody's creative. I say that and a lot of people think, oh, no, you're not. But, How to Fly a Horse is a book that I read that really talks about creativity being everywhere and in everything. It's not an epiphany. It's not an aha moment. It's just a culmination of a lot of hard work, a lot of experimentation, a lot of risk taking, a lot of failure, and the creative confidence to continue to push through that. And then ultimately it's judged through the lens of, oh my God, something really creative happened. But we all know, the perception of hip developments being a creative business, that's just relationships, hard work, risk, failure, try again, think of this. And so everybody can be creative in their own way, but it takes practice. And so what we're trying to do with this program is instill more creative confidence within our grade schools and high schools outside of the system that is relatively structured. And, could you imagine if you were a newcomer to Waterloo region, you're probably the furthest from opportunity. And all of a sudden the community gives you $500 or $1,000 towards your idea, whatever that idea might be, with no obligation or pressure to try to succeed, just to try and learn from your failures. And then better yet, if we attach that to some level of connected mentorship that starts to form under that fund, like these are powerful potentials. And the way the fund is built is kids can apply individually, they can apply as a student group, or they can apply as a classroom. They can receive funding from anywhere from $500 to $2,500. So it's micro funding, and they can apply as many times as they like. Every application is not rejected unless it's doing something illegal or, I don't even want to say deemed inappropriate, because I think we have too many strings of what is deemed inappropriate these days. So maybe it just ought to be, if you're not breaking a law and it's not, grossly over the top, but the kids get it. And so there's no governance to say that's a good idea or not, because that's going to deflate the creative confidence of the idea itself. So this is like utopia. You have an idea you want to try, the community is going to support you and invest in you. That moment creates those community bonds, creates that community attachment, right? And I think in particular, we have to keep remembering that half of our area is new, right? They don't have the legacy of knowledge that we might have being here for 30 or 40 or 50 years. They might be here for 6 years, and they really don't know the history of Waterloo region. They're viewing it through the lens of our current narrative, which is University of Waterloo and technology and all of the advanced manufacturing in Cambridge and things like that. but it's more important to get to the soul of the community. And I think if we do that, I mean, those kids form confidence is really what you're trying to breed, right? And there's ways we do a lot of things in the program that try to stimulate. We have about 100 creative exercises that you have to go through as part of the application just to try to flex that muscle, right? And it could be nothing to do with the idea that you have, just perspective or looking at things a little bit differently or accepting failure and how to respond to failure. A lot of neat programs there. We've partnered with the Business Education Partnership, which a lot of us don't know, but they were formed 18 years ago to kind of be a conduit between the business community and the school boards and local government. They were doing like, job fairs and some career training things and that in the schools. But they had the infrastructure, or existing not-for-profit, 18-year operation, existing infrastructure to administer the program to the schools. But yeah, I mean, I just think you want to touch, you want to tie it to celebration and community culture. We have to keep these stories alive because that's what keeps the energy alive. If we can turn that into lineage and expectation, far better. And if we can just continue to allow the kids to accept failure, but to continue to exercise their creative confidence in trying to do something or invent something or make something, regardless of what it is, that's the training ground that we need then. And in turn, that's the entrepreneurial success that will come behind that, in all forms, right? All ESG and conventional entrepreneurship, these are where the ideas are going to come from. And I think most of us that have kids, like I know, we try to find talent in university. The talent exists like in hockey. I'll joke in hockey because I play a lot of hockey, right? But we identify talent in hockey and try to nurture talent at a very young age. We don't wait till they're 18 years old to see if they're made of something or not. I mean, at that point, they might already be in the show. So we're not harnessing the talent that exists in our community. We're waiting for existing talent that's already out there to come to our post-secondary institutions, and that's hopefully a program like this can start to change that narrative.
Yeah, isn't that in there? That's a great analogy when you look at that. The first thing you do is you get your kids, teach them how to skate, and then they get introduced to half ice hockey, and they're learning the game, and we're trying to inspire them through challenging them every week when they go onto the ice and get better and get better. But we don't do that to draw out the creativity from a business acumen perspective, and how a lot of these young kids can change the world with innovative ideas. And I say that because if you go to youthcreativityfund.ca, you'll see a video on there of two young ladies who developed an app. Absolutely an incredible story when you see these two really very young girls who identified a gap in helping communities and countries who experience disaster-related effects. So a tsunami or a flood or an earthquake or things like that, where there are very vital and important things that get disrupted in the supply chain, so to speak. And then when communication breaks down at that point, the people maybe don't get their EpiPens, their asthma puffers and little things like that they need on an ongoing basis. But when communications broke down and there's a disaster in the area, how do you identify that? And they created an app that a precursor to the disaster, where people can go on and register what their needs are, so that in the event there is a disaster, it's documented. And that relief agencies going in know they need 10,000 puffers, they need 15,000 EpiPens, they need, all of these kinds of things for these individual people. And so they don't overload the system with getting too many EpiPens and not enough puffers, that they get exactly what they need. And I think they're, and these are two young girls. Like, these are, I see a lot of things going on in the world, and it never, ever occurred to me that this would be a need. But they identified this because somewhere along the way, the creativity and the ingenuity and the passion that they had for doing good in the world brought that out of them. And it's absolutely worth every second of your time to go on to youthcreativityfund.ca
I couldn't read it.
and actually watch that video. I think you would really love it. But let's get into the meat and potatoes of this, Scott, that are really important. Obviously, Scott, and a group of friends brought this together. This was really important for them personally because they identified the need and they thought it was important to do. But they're business folks. They've got other things to do. They've got, buildings to build in Scott's case, and they needed an organization. So I think absolutely perfect alignment with the Business and Education Partnership, for sure. But the funding is going to be the key aspect. And that's really where the Chamber wants to help and assist in shining a light on this very, very important project, because it's going to be all about you and me making this happen. And so, Scott, let's talk about that and what the needs are and how people can play an important role without it breaking anybody's bank.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it's really any community initiative needs to be that. It can't be government led. So we've built this to not try to lobby government to fund the program. So HIP Developments put $100,000 in to seed the start of the program. It's youthcreativityfund.ca. We're going to launch in April into the school boards. We'll get to COVID recovery and mental health and what this is going to do for the kids in that vein after. But it's really meant there's a donation platform within the youthcreativityfund.ca. Again, that donation goes to the Business and Education Partnership, which is a registered charity. So you'll get a charitable receipt. They're not for profit, and they will steward the funds and administer the program to the school boards. And you can donate down to $2. You can donate, one time. You can set a recurring monthly. We're certainly open for larger donations, but it's not meant to be, we're looking for sponsors of X and you got to break your bank. This is, would you buy me lunch once a month so that we can give some money to some kids to explore their creative confidence, creative muscle, and creative ideas. And it's really meant to be that grassroots funding program. And so we're going to be out to the community, asking the community to participate in that fundraising. And, we do a lot of things from a social point of view, which is good. And I'm an advocate to supporting food banks and things like that. But, ultimately education, entrepreneurship, and that level of creativity is going to lead to that future success. And if we can use funding to get to those that otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. I mean, those two girls in that initiative were absolutely fantastic, but they were also supported by an ecosystem of family and opportunity that doesn't exist for half or even, more than half of the community. And so a program like this can help get to those that are losing that creative confidence or that opportunity and try to tell them that the community supports them and wants to encourage their ideas. It is a mountain to climb because it will take a number of years to build that confidence within the kids themselves to want to participate in a program like this. I don't think it's going to be a funding problem because everyone today is going to buy us lunch and go onto that website and help us out. But it'll be continuing to encourage participation in the program, which is going to take some time. So the idea is we build, I'd like to raise between $500,000 and $1 million annually. I think we will be able to probably push out 250 to $500,000 annually to the kids. But that'll grow an endowment and that'll grow the fund's ability to continue to support the kids longer term. And I think that's really easy to do. And when we do that, it's not pulling away from those donations to the social sector. It's really improving the legacy of our communities to the point where, we have more entrepreneurial success. Here's the reality, this, Greg. Those that donate to social causes, those that donate to community causes, I mean, oftentimes they're not the globalists, right? They're the small and medium-sized businesses that the community gave them opportunity. They're still running their businesses in the community. They're still employed within the community, and they give back to the community. Not to say that some of our big corporate partners in the community don't help us out from time to time, but those tend to be big initiatives, big things. That's not the sponsor a hockey team. That's not the donate to the food bank and things like that. So, it's important that we raise homegrown entrepreneurs because they're typically the ones that are the funders to have the benefactor in the community get the funding that's needed. It's not the big global conglomerate. So the spirit of entrepreneurship can't die in Waterloo Region because Waterloo Region will die if it does. And here's a program to say we can still focus on the post-secondary elements and they're good. but we ought to have a program that develops, innovation and entrepreneurship and creativity at a grade school and high school level. So.
Yeah, I think, you're absolutely right. When you look at the phrase that you coined, a number of years ago, the creative capital of Canada, we can't let that be, only based in our history. It has to be based in our future as well. And that's what we are. We are a bunch of people that do some really great things for the world. And if you look at a lot of the things that have come out of this community have made, stark differences. We're using these things now largely because of, what Mike Lazaridis and Jim Balsillie built many, many years ago here in the region of Waterloo. They transformed computer technology and how it is used. Now, that doesn't say that it wouldn't have come along anyway, but they pioneered the path. They cut down the weeds in the jungle to clear the path so that others will follow. And it's just changed the entire world, because there's probably no one on this planet that is doing anything from a business or political or social purpose without one of these devices. And it's making their days prosperous. I want to talk a little bit, Scott, about how the program will fundamentally work. So I know, a business and education partnership are actually going to put that whole format together to bring, first of all, credibility to it, but more importantly, a scientific method on making sure we can get the money out quickly. But, there has to be a system of assessment in some regard. How is that going to work?
Yeah, so we've spent the last year and a half developing a web platform and then working with partners on that content. So we hope it eventually goes just peer-to-peer and the students start talking about it and wanting to do it themselves. But you'll go to the youthcreativityfund.ca. There'll be an application submission there, so a process that you go through. It's a relatively easy process because we're trying to not make that first barrier too high or you won't get enough participation. So there's an application process around what your idea is, some simple steps, and you have to do one of the creative exercises that's there in relation to your idea. So it's a fairly simple process. You have to identify whether you're a single student, a group of students, or a classroom. That application then gets submitted. It gets reviewed by the BEP has established a pretty inclusive committee to review those applications. So there is a review criteria. They're reviewing it on the basis of not what the idea is or will the idea succeed or how detailed the submission is. They're reviewing it on the basis of simply legality and if it's offensive or things like that. But for the most part, that review happens, and then the student or group of students would get notification that their application's been successful. And then there's a follow-up submission that happens with another creative exercise in relation to their idea, just to show follow through. So I have an idea, I want to do something, I've applied. It's relatively easy online to apply. A committee reviews, but again, not to reviewing to select winners. We shouldn't be picking winners. We should be encouraging risk-taking and failure and learning. So we're just trying to get the creative confidence. Congratulations, you've been successful. You come back to do a secondary submission just to show that you mean that you are going to go. And then after that, the funding gets dispersed. And so there's parental sign-off forms, there's all the legalities that come, and then the funds get dispersed to the students. So in theory, you're going to get some waste in a program like that because you're going to trust the fact that they're going to ultimately do what they're going to try to do. And there is a follow-up mechanism in month 3 or 4. And then over time, what we hope to build out is a bit of mentorship. There's about 210 volunteers that do guest speaking as part of the BEP's network. And so we'll expand that. You maybe don't want to give money, but you want to volunteer time for mentorship. That'll be an element to the program in time. But, then the student gets the money. Then there's some support mechanisms. There's way to share peer-to-peer. So they're going to establish peer-to-peer networks so that if others in the region are working on a similar idea or trying to make peer-to-peer connections to support. I mean, we all know it's the ecosystem of community that builds a business. We're trying to create that ecosystem within the grade and high schools. And then that's it. That's up to you. And so if your idea works, it works. What did you learn from it? If you want to reapply for additional funding to continue to pursue it, if you want to change the idea, go ahead. I mean, again, you're just trying to seed the action, not the outcome. You're just trying to get a kid to think about whether they have an idea, try to pursue that idea, and understand that failure and risk are part of the process, and they're learning principles, not something to be scared of. And so we're trying to have that. I mean, we might have applicants that try it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times. We're going to trust that there's some waste in the system, but that's what risk and experiment is. I mean, what business only puts prudent dollars into success? I don't know any, not in my business. We put dollars into a whole lot of things in hopes that 1 or 2 of those succeed. So that's kind of how the program's going to work. And we'll eventually build a little more structure, we hope, on the mentorship and the follow-up. But for now, it's just, if you have an idea, we'd love to help you. But again, just imagine how powerful that is. Like, you're here, you're in grade school, you have some ideas, maybe you don't have opportunity, maybe your parents want you to do something else. And here's the community saying, we value your ideas. We're going to show our value by investing in your ideas and mentoring you a little bit. When you go away and do your thing, we're not advocating you to change the world from home. We just want to create serial inventors, entrepreneurs, social governance, all the good stuff. You're going to remember that Waterloo Region did that for you. Well, generally, when you go away and have success and someone's helped you with that success, you help them in turn. You might not even live here, but you start to develop that culture where it's almost like U.S. universities, right? People give to U.S. universities because there's this allegiance that builds up. Can you imagine if we had that level of community connectiveness in Waterloo Region, where when someone goes away and does something, I mean, we still are the benefactors of what Lazarus and Basili built, and a whole bunch of others. Pre that was a whole bunch of others. But you look at our best parks, our best things, typically success out of a community reinvests in a community. I think, giving that grain to a younger audience is equally important as giving it to a post-secondary audience.
It seems to be almost a stark contrast to traditional education when you say, if you fail, you fail, it's no big deal, right? Like, because, all I know is when things were tough with me in a certain class, I heard about it at home, and I heard about it from the teacher, and, but this is true and total inspiration. Hey, walk out on that plank. Don't be afraid. Yeah. You got to take some risk. And sometimes you're going to fail, and sometimes you're going to fall down and you're going to get hurt. But don't ever look away from risk that has a potential benefit to others and to yourself. And I think, how is that going to conflict with or work with the current education system? Because you're going to have keen relationships with the school boards.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's doing it in concert, that having structured learning and unstructured exploration coexist. I don't think it's one or the other. And as long as both sides acknowledge that we're not going to all of a sudden change curriculum and turn the cruise ship. So we have to acknowledge that a level of discipline and structured learning is important. It is important. It is important as you move through life and your business career, whatever your career might be. But to accept that openness of learning in that unstructured environment. And, you and I talked before we got on the call of like, are we losing that risk taking? Like, whether it was new immigrants coming here to take the biggest risk of their life with no money, barely know the language, and try to find, their path in life, or, just such a structured environment right now. And I think it's so important. We started this pre-COVID in discussion, and it's just so important now because we've put so much structure, and if we indoctor that, because we did 2.5 years of heavy structure, that authority shapes a kid's mind, and it could frankly shape it very negative right now on their permission to explore. Right from when I was a kid, like, go out in the street lights, come on, come back home. I mean, that's a tough world right now that doesn't really exist. Even with my kids, it doesn't exist in an unstructured way, but they need that. And you see, when you give them that space, they tend to come alive. Maybe it takes a little bit to get used to that. But yeah, I think it'll be a sensitive conversation. We're not trying to say that the curriculum in the schools are not what we should be teaching, and that passing and getting good marks are not important. but I think we need to equally value exploration and failure and build the confidence that those things are part of life. And more importantly, those things are probably part of the most success you'll have in life. And if we can get that message into our kids, and at a time of their life when they don't really have obligation, right? Like the best idea, this is why I always say, get a group of kids together and ask them how to go to the moon. In there somewhere is the right idea.
Yeah.
Get a group of adults together and ask them how to go to the moon, and they'll tell you all the reasons why you can't go to the moon. Like we do a good job of constraining ourselves to conformity in a later life, and then we put a mortgage on our back and obligations on our back, and our level of risk taking has to diminish because of our responsibilities. Why not give the most, risk investment in a space that doesn't have the responsibility yet? And just as a training tool, again, we're not expecting outcomes. We're not saying all of a sudden we're going to have this, rocket ship of entrepreneurship of a bunch of 14-year-olds doing wonderful things in Waterloo region. We're just trying to seed the confidence to try that, and to try to impart in them they're from an area that supports that and wants to encourage that, in hopes that it feeds the ecosystem. So
yeah, it's interesting because in my last 20 years here at the chamber, I've run into a lot of entrepreneurs that are some incredibly funny stories. They're funny now, but I'm sure at the time they were happening they weren't very funny at all. Yeah. About two young guys going to the University of Guelph, and just by happenstance, their dad said, "Well, I'm not gonna pay for your accommodations." They lived in Guelph. He says, "You can live at home," and they wanted to enjoy the whole atmosphere. So he said, "Well, what I'll do is I'll give you $10,000, go and buy a house down near the university and rent out a few rooms to your buddies, or a cot in the corner, or whatever you can find, and try and make it go." Well, by the time these two brothers graduated from university, they had like 4 or 5 student housing complexes at that point, and they still were in university, and they graduated. But like he tells the story, Martin tells me the story, and he says, like, "Greg, let me tell you, literally peanut butter sandwiches. And the highlight was if we had a tin of tuna fish, we could put on the peanut butter sandwich." Like he said, "I know it sounds gross, but that's what we lived on, that and as many boxes of craft dinner we could get on sale. That's what today they have over $1 billion of property right across Canada. And because it was funny then, but you know what? They didn't have any baggage to carry around. They didn't have, kids at home that depended on them. They didn't have a mortgage at home. They would have lived in the backyard of one of these rental units because they were building out their dream, and it was the perfect time to do that because there was no saddlebags. There was nothing anchoring them down. It was just their creativity and their thought pattern on how we can do more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Jason and Marty, they've got one of the biggest private REITs, but here's the deal. Their dad gave them 10 grand.
Yeah.
What if the community did? Right. And
yeah,
because this is why, like, if we're going to truly be an inclusive society, we have to think about those that are furthest from opportunity, but we have to think about them in a way of instilling creative confidence and opportunity and hope, not help. Help keeps people in a certain space in life. And in one generation, this was what the immigrant wave did, right? Like they just tried to create the opportunity for the next generation. So be it. That's what we're trying to do. But we have the opportunity to do that. And if we can seed it at that age, you can fundamentally shift a kid's life just by helping them when they can't, their parents can't. And we have a lot of those kids in Waterloo region. And that was the feedback we got out of Smart Cities was, there's an element of society that is successful, and there's an element of society that is struggling to attach to this community because life is hard, because they don't have those connections. And if we can get a program like this working in year 5, in year 7, in year 10, where we've pushed the confidence right down to every corner of the community, and then better yet, made that peer-to-peer confidence within the school boards themselves, like that, it's a long play for sure. This isn't, we've got this magic pill and we're all going to raise $20 each and in a year it's going to fix itself. But, you know, if we could get this working and in 10 years from now, look back and say, oh my goodness, we had 2,500 kids from Waterloo region participate in the Youth Creativity Fund to exercise their creative confidence, and the community funded those initiatives, like, you will attract the talent, even selfishly from a business owner. You struggle to find talent right now. Well, do things in your community that bring talent to your community. Paying people for jobs isn't going to bring talent to your community, because people value life. Give their kids an opportunity and show that that's what we stand for as a community. People will move there, right? And this is the placemaking vibe, you know, I get on too. Same thing. So I just think it's really timely right now, because, like we said, I mean, we've all gone crazy in the last 2 years. The community is frayed at the edges. It's broken in parts, and we have to come together again and realize that we were a community pre-COVID. We need to be a community post-COVID. But I think we put so much structure around our own lives. Imagine how a kid processes that when they were already in a heavy structured environment. Like, we need to do some things to help rebuild their confidence and their mental health. And I think a program like this can go a long way in telling them it's okay to explore. It's okay to have your own ideas and to pursue those ideas. And, oh, by the way, it's not only okay, the community wants to actually invest in you to pursue that. That can do a lot of help over the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah, I think you answered the next question I was going to have for you, and that was, you know, it's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to tug on your heartstrings and say, you know, here's people who you know, don't have a home, you know, donate to that. Here's people who don't have a meal, let's donate to that. You know, this kind of seems a little bit different, but that it's not a tug. It's not intended to be a tug on your heart as much as it's intended to be a tug on your brain to say, you know, this is really important to the business fabric in the region of Waterloo, that we continue to create an atmosphere of creativity, ingenuity, and inspiration. And that's why it is our responsibility to support projects like this that create that, because they could be our customers down the road, or our particular businesses' customers down the road. This is about creating, you know, our fabric of entrepreneurship that supports each and every business. So it's not, you know, yeah, it's great to say, oh, I'd love to support these young kids doing this, but this has got to be, to some degree, a little bit on the selfish side of saying, no, this is about economy. This is an economic development project of how we can create, groom the talent within our community to continue that process of being creative and innovative.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, you're exactly right, and it's you know, it's about building bridges, not walls. And then but this was an economic development strategy. When we researched, when we had the idea and tried to research what program delivery models could work, we actually did spend time looking at a bunch of various delivery models, some based on youth, some not. And that's why we landed on the micro grant programs in developing nations, because, you know, there was a direct compassionate benefit to that, but that wasn't the point of them. The point of them was to develop an ecosystem of confidence and culture and opportunity and hope, that it actually produced a self-sustaining ecosystem of success. And you know, those models did work. And so as we were going through it on how, you know, there's lots of models on big funding, picking winners, weren't sustainable, doesn't create the right culture, behavior. There's lots of charitable stuff that's purely that. Again, that doesn't create the motivation or the teaching to succeed. So we spent some time looking at what is the right model of delivery. And that's why we landed on the micro grant program, is because they've seemed to have the most lasting success. Conversely, they're some of the hardest to get adapted, because there's a reservation to participate because they are different. And so we know that that's going to be the biggest challenge with the program, is not going to be the, yeah, we should do it, or yeah, we can fund it. That's not to create complacency in those two things, but it's going to be more the take up and getting that culture to work. But no, you're right. I mean, but every good solution to build community has to not be rooted in philanthropy. It just doesn't work if it's just that, right? It has to create a sustaining model, and it has to have some level of economic benefit. And so this one clearly does, right?
Yeah, and we've been big advocates of that. Help us build our economy, and then don't worry about it. The social fabric will be taken care of through the success of the business and the entrepreneurship in our community. So we've always rallied around that, and even from an economic development perspective, in my world, not too many, no chambers in Canada are directly responsible for economic development, but my colleagues in the United States, lots of them they run economic development departments within their own organizations. And they will always tell you that, foreign direct investment is great. It's wonderful when the big companies, start sniffing around, but that's when you buy them lunch and give them a bottle of wine. You don't need to go out and look for them. What you need to do is go out in your community and find the creativity and inspire the genius within your own community, because that's the fastest way to build jobs and capacity in your community is through the businesses that have already bought in. So, and that's what we're really talking about here. These kids are going to school here. These kids are on a path, a trajectory to finish school and go on to post-secondary education or not. We won't even know or be able to identify what creative spirit did we leave behind in that grade 7 student that we could have extracted. And maybe it won't be that, but it will be something else that will change the dimension of his or her world, but more importantly, our world, and benefit everybody. And I think that's why this project is so important for us in the community, business leaders, entrepreneurs, and people who just care about the community and its economic success, to pitch in a little bit and help this program succeed, because I think we could have monumental success that we never experienced in our history around creativity.
And if we can do it in a grassroots way, like you just said, then you share in that success. I mean, you want the heartstring. If we get this program rolling and you've donated $10 as a community member, because that's what you could do, and you see a student from the area succeed in whatever that might be, there is a direct connection, because you are part of that success by nature of your participating in helping a program like this. So purposefully, we've done it to be very grassroots. We're not suggesting, the biggest corporate donor gets the most profile. Nope. It's an online donation tool that you'll get your charitable receipt, but you could donate $2. And you know what? Because that's what you can do. Thank you. And that's going to help somebody in the community. So we're excited to roll it out. We're going to try to roll it out in April, push for fundraising over the summer. The other thing is just to keep these flames alive, Greg. When you were talking about a grade school student with an idea, I mean, a lot of times that grade 7 student with an idea all of a sudden doesn't have as many ideas in grade 11. Yeah. And you just see it happen. And what you're trying to do is keep, that passion exists. And it's really only some kind of institutional framework or responsibility or who knows what, that you start to exhaust that because you need to follow a more structured path. And really all a program like this is trying to do is catch that flame and reward it, and so that it nurtures to stay burning a little bit longer, and then hopefully gives them some skills to grow their creative confidence and flex their creative muscles and just watch what happens. So we're really, really excited about it. It's taken a year and a half behind the scenes to sort of figure out how to do it, get it structured. The other thing is the Region of Waterloo has bought into it as well. So Chair Redmond is on board, and they've got a kind of a youth council as part of economic development. But Grayson's on board. And so we're really excited to bring, and that's what part of the background is to bring the reputation to it too. It's not a hip development thing. It's a business and education partnership thing with the region on board, with the chambers participating. And now it's going to be up to the community to try to seed it and then have the BEP roll it out through the school boards kind of at the end of this semester, and then ultimately get it fully rolling in September. There was a question in the chat, quick, Greg, on just, is it open? It's not a school board thing. So it's public, Catholic, private, homeschool, doesn't matter. It's a kid thing. So it's being targeted between the ages of sort of grade 7 and the end of high school, but it's not like it's limited in terms of its delivery model. It's really just open to the youth of the community. We think the schools are going to be the easiest way to try to disseminate the information so that the kids can participate, but by no means is it exclusive to a particular school board or excluding homeschooling and private schooling and things like that.
and you can't identify yourself as a big kid like I would normally. But you probably know kids. And I think, more importantly, that grade 7 student that, I talked about that maybe has an idea, you wonder a little bit of, they're, maybe they lose that idea by the time they're in grade 10, 11, and 12, but have some of those ideas been lost as a result of the last 2 years? And, we need to find a way through abnormal times to create normal conditions. And it's things like this that, hopefully we can do as a business community. There's not, we do whatever we possibly can. Everybody here has been, with us along this path, and we've been trying to do whatever we can do. And I think, that just makes it even more important that we dig in now that we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel getting a little brighter. Hopefully, let's keep that pedal down to better days ahead. But we can create those better days too, and we can't forget about those brilliant young ingenious minds that we need at the end of this. We need to start grooming them right now. So I'm glad, Scott, that, I know COVID kind of kicked everything, a lot of little projects that everybody had kind of off to the side, but I'm glad you're spiriting this forward and pressing and saying, now's the time, it's important now. And, hopefully the business community will rally around the program as well. I know certainly the chamber will do our part to help encourage people to donate and contribute and participate along the way, whether it's through mentorship or experience or whatever. I think this is an exciting thing. And, those of us, we can sit back and watch all of the great things that happen as time goes on that we helped inspire. And I think that's the satisfaction that comes with this. That's the heart tug from an old guy's perspective, who's at the other end of the work scale saying, I just want to see what I left behind and what it can do. And we can leave a few bucks behind and see what it can do too.
Yeah, the legacy is an interesting opportunity for us. And I mean, I'll end with a Disney quote. But Walt said the greatest natural resource we have is the mind of our children. I mean, that's true. I mean, if we're going to do resource allocation as a nation to what we want to be in the future, let's always remember that that's our greatest natural resource, and we ought to be doing everything we can to support them. And if we do that, then they'll be more successful in us. And if they remember that legacy, then their kids will be more successful in them. And that's the point of life, isn't it? So, it's pretty exciting. Yeah.
Scott, we're blessed to have you in our community, not just from the developments that you do that are really creative, cool, and neat, but your passion and concern for other aspects of our community is going to make us great. And we appreciate everything that you do for the broader community, aside from the creative developments that you do. So thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Well, thanks for the kind words, Greg. And I'll echo those back to you. Keep up the good work in the community.
Yeah. If you want to get a hold of Scott, Scott's available. Send him a note. Tell him you want to volunteer, get involved. You want to write a big check to this. Scott at hipdevelopments.com. And he'd be happy to have a chat with you. Thanks, folks. Have a great rest of your Wednesday.